start and dive into the topic, I wanted to actually introduce Álvaro here. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to have Alvi here join us. We have been working together, so he's a dear former colleague of mine and also friend, I can say. And Alvi is currently working at On as a senior lead in the digital go-to-market transformation team. And we have worked together alongside each other in teams around the digital showroom topic at Stitch and at PVH. Yeah, Alvi has enormous amounts of experience building digital showrooms across different brands throughout the last 10 to 12 years, maybe, I think. So yeah, super excited to have him here and to have this conversation online with Alvi.
Likewise. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, and then my name is Luna Visscher-Laysiepen. You may have seen me before as well in the previous webinar. I've been working at Fashion Cloud now for about 1.5 years, but my journey started about 10 years ago also at PVH. And I have been working with and in and around fashion showrooms, both physical and digital, ever since then. So for the past 10 years now. And yeah, today Alvi and I are just going to share some of our hard-learned, sometimes insights and learnings that we've gathered over the past 10 years and share them with you. So really excited for that. Before we head into the topic, I just wanted to actually ask you to grab your phone if you want and scan the QR code or go to the slido.com website and enter this code, because yeah, we have some nice questions for you to just kick off the session. And yeah, the first question is, what are you hoping to get out of today's webinar? You can just throw any words out there, just for us also interesting to hear what you have in mind and how we can potentially, hopefully help you in your journey. Inspiration, nice.
Nice.
Updates. Wow. Real world insights. Well, that's definitely what you're getting.
I hope so, yeah.
Nice. The future, yeah, that's a very good one. Knowledge in building new experiences, understanding. Inspiration is the big winner, I guess, here.
Nice.
Super, really helpful. I think, yeah, we will definitely touch upon a lot of these things. Hopefully we will be able to give you a lot of new information and new insights. That's at least the goal of today. I have actually one more other question, which is, are you currently already working with a digital showroom solution? Just let us know so that we have an understanding of the general understanding and knowledge of digital showrooms. So the majority is on not yet. Let me just move you around. Okay, yeah. Majority on not yet, some on yes, and some on something similar. And something similar, I know you can't answer, but something similar, I'm assuming would be another type of pre-order tool, like a B2B pre-order solution perhaps, or maybe a solution provided by your ERP system. Yeah, super nice. Good. All right, so we have quite a lot of newbies in the group, so that's interesting. So hopefully a lot of new insights to be had for everybody here.
Great.
Thank you for your insights. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, is the following rough topics, I would say. So yeah, the first one is, what can digital showrooms bring to fashion wholesale? Or to the pre-order process in fashion wholesale more specifically. Then we're going to go into the question that we're all here for, I guess, is the build versus buy question. So what are the considerations that you as a brand would need to take into account when making a decision like this? Then Alvi, with his bucket loads of experience, is going to share some hands-on experience, which is good because I also saw that that was some of the requests from the audience today about building digital showrooms. And yeah, we definitely want to wrap this up and send you packing, let's say, with some practical takeaways. So really some steps on how do you go about this process of procuring a digital showroom or implementing a digital showroom. And we will also follow up together with the recording of the session with like a checklist that you can take to the office and read through. And if you have any questions afterwards, again, be sure to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help you on your way. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to, as a reference, because also I saw that quite a lot of people don't work with a digital showroom yet. And I know there is quite a bit of ambiguity about what is a digital showroom exactly, what does it look like, what does it do? And yeah, I think a digital showroom, and we will touch upon that in more detail, can have different shapes or forms, but just as a visual to share with the audience here is that digital showrooms, like I said, can have many shapes or forms. I think the core of a digital showroom is the software, but it also goes often hand in hand with the wider and broader experience. And so, yeah, on the screen here, you see in the top left, you see a like more hardware physical expression of what a digital showroom could look like in a physical space, where really the experience is the core focus, I would say, of what you want to bring to your customer during a pre-order appointment. And in the top, in the bottom right, what you can see is basically a screenshot of what a digital showroom software could look like. And this software can more often than not run on laptops or iPads, but it can also run on these hardware configurations that you see here as well. So it's a very dynamic, multi-purpose, I would say, solution for your pre-order process. But just to give you a bit of a visual of what you can expect when we talk about the concept of digital showroom today. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we have full focus on our guest speaker. So yeah, let's just kick off with the first question, which is, what can digital showrooms bring to a brand's pre-order process in your experience, Alvi?
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, it feels like a full circle moment when we were doing these webinars together, and now coming here as a guest. More than happy to be here. I think we've been doing the digital showrooms, you and I, for over 10 years, even more. But essentially, I would say the answer to this question hasn't really changed. I don't know if it's a matter of indeed like the industry's ability to change and how we drive innovation, but I would say when it comes to the pre-order process, there are three areas that a digital showroom solution can really help. I think the first one is I always see them as a level up kind of areas, because almost like one unlocks the other and the other one unlocks the latter. The first one is efficiency. Efficiency. I think when you look into digital showrooms, a lot of the times you get not lost is not the right word, but you get really derouted from like the visual component of it, which is great. But a lot of the times what you don't see is the actual data portion that really drives a lot of these solutions. And in that making, there is a huge component that organizations often miss or often underinvest in. And things like like the data quality, data cleanliness, data readiness. Like a lot of the times when you work in solutions that go into space like pre-order and you work with sales teams, we often forget that that process is not only very fast paced, very cyclic, and also very in and out. Like what it means with this is that this tool almost has to work as fast, as intense, as fast paced as a sales team. And for that to happen effectively, for them to actually trust a solution like this, you need to really understand that you need to have your ducks in a row, and you need to do that in a way that they can find efficiency gains. What I mean with efficiency is nothing else than trying to make whatever they do often in the showroom faster and better than the actual input in the showroom. For instance, you're showing somebody a sample and you want to see a different colorway. that you might actually have that colorway merchandise in a different area of the showroom because you might merchandise your showroom in a particular different way. A solution like this, provided you have the right data, allows you to quickly swap things in and out. I actually see your different colorways for a similar style. These are the things that in the showroom happen thousands of times per appointment, especially with your biggest accounts. But if you don't really hit those, there's so much you can do later on things like alignment and storytelling. These are the areas where you build a habit with the sales teams. And that is the areas where as an organization, you need to prioritize always because these will be, it's almost, and I can tell you also from experience back at Tommy Hilfiger when we did this 10 years ago, the biggest unlock for these was nothing else than to really in the background, while we were providing things to sell in the background, really going step by step on fixing the data portion. Because building data for a non-digital process, requires a lot of different things than for a digital process. So that is, I would say, the first portion of it, efficiency. And then I think alignment is the second one. Alignment is actually one of the things that from a human component I like the most because one, like as you go through your efficiency gains and you're in a space where the process is a lot more um, a lot of more self-maintaining in a way, like where the sales teams are able to work with the tool alongside the process. Alignment is the next thing that happens, which is you see the tool actually having up-to-date data, up-to-date assets. You start seeing how they're able to work with it quickly. Immediately, everybody around wants to have a piece of it. Immediately, everybody around wants to, look into how can they actually leverage something like this. And this has pros and cons, but I think what's important about this is also understanding that when you do the right things on efficiency, it also puts you in a better position to be able to pull the right teams to make that experience better. And that means maybe adding, like forecast data, maybe adding additional account data, maybe adding additional marketing data. Those things, you can work on those two streams in parallel, but the biggest unlock on alignment will happen when you really figure out what you need data-wise to make these as agile as you need it to be, as like natural to the selling process. And then that's the other part where you really need to pull up that sort of like change management, that sort of like engaging with everybody around, because nothing has changed in this regard for the graders in the highest level, and that is that whatever happened in the wholesale process and in the showroom and with the sales teams, for many people outside of selling and wholesale in those companies, it's a black box. So what I've seen is that the moment you make these things work better and better, the more people actually start paying attention to how the selling process, the pre-order process happens, to how the showroom experience looks like, and that means that you get more interest to help you out, but also a bigger chance to make people understand how relevant and important wholesale is for most of the brands out there. So efficiency, then alignment, and last but not least, because for me it's also as a marketeer in at heart, the one that makes me more excited about it is storytelling. I think we tend to put a lot of pressure on the sales teams to know everything, to tell everything, and I think digital showroom solutions ultimately should be the best representation of your brand as a whole, of your seasonal story for that of your story for that season, and be able to provide that extra support for sales teams. So when you're talking about, I don't know, imagine in the case of if you're launching the new Cloud 6, there's one thing you could do by just simply showing the product and describing yourself what the product is, than to have additional content that can really help you tell that story, whether that might be via videos, via images, via additional things. This is more about enhancing what the sales team already do, and I think that's where storytelling plays a huge role. This is again another thing you can work in parallel, but the more you get that efficiency, understanding how to manage data and alignment, in this case, connecting with marketing team, the more you can make sure the marketing team is involved earlier in the process to really get all those assets in place. It's like these three things, you can kind of like work with them simultaneously, but it's almost like you're gonna reach a plateau in the last two. If you don't get, it's almost like you need to reach a threshold with the first ones in order for the other ones to really scale.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that, and I do agree with you. I think maybe also continuing on that thought line is that, what I've seen in the past years is that for sure, the topic of digital pre-order solutions has gained a lot of momentum, especially if we compare to, like you said, our early days back in 2014 when the first version of the Tommy Digital Showroom was implemented, and how brands and retailers were responding to it at that time and how they're now thinking about digital pre-order solutions nowadays. I mean, you know, having this webinar and having so many people join us today is, I think, testament to that. So yeah, I think brands are really keen to understand more about, how can we make our business processes more efficient? And pre-order is more of the inspirational part as well of the business, whereas reorder can be seen as more transactional part of the business. So yeah, there's a lot of interest in how can we keep that pre-order process inspirational while also keeping the transactional part in mind, because that is at the end of the day also what we're here to do, right? Is to sell. So the common denominator I would say in this conversation is that brands are keen to see a pre-order solution that really brings together all the process steps that comes with the pre-order, let's say, world. So what they would like to see more and more, what I'm hearing from the market, is that to have that as one fluid, let's say, experience, or maybe even a modular experience that they can, like you said, build up onto each other to have a solution that works well for them. What I was saying, what I'm meaning with all these pre-order steps is that you have your seasonal prep work, which is often done by your merchandising teams or your product development teams. You have, of course, the in-season order entry, but also the data insights that fuel that sales season. And to have all of these elements sort of brought together in one solution, I think more and more brands are understanding the importance of having that. And we could even go as far, but this is maybe the next step, as to say that how can we bring our pre-order solutions and our reorder and replenishment solutions all in one experience, because that would even make the stream and the fluidity of the data that you mentioned between pre-order and your sellout data, to have that all under one roof. I mean, that is the ideal experience, I think.
Yeah, correct.
And why are brands looking for the,
No, I think, but you hit a really important topic in there when it comes to storytelling and when it comes to pre-order. There's an additional element to that, which is the fact that the pre-order business is just as strategic and transactional, because it usually determines a huge amount of volume for the companies later on. And one of the reasons why storytelling is so important at this stage is that ultimately, for a buyer, it's still a bet. They're still looking at a product that still needs to be produced, that still needs to be campaigned. It's the storytelling piece is a reminder that a buyer needs to be as excited as the end consumer will be, and how you're able to bring that design inspiration from merchandising decisions all the way into how you sell it will have a drastic impact in how they will sell it. So and the more you do that, the more you're able to commit together with the same bets. It's storytelling in this case is strategic alignment. It's actually the ability to make sure that expectation you have can really be met. But you can't expect a buyer to make, especially for for brands that are growing, you can't expect that transaction to be met if you're not providing them with the right tools to be confident that you are going to deliver. And I think this is indeed where the showroom can really is not the end game, but it can be like an amazing supporting element to that relationship the sales and buyers teams do to make sure that bet is met. Otherwise, how are you going to tell them? You might want to say, I want to, we believe so much in this, but at the same time, you're going to have to come with an extra forecast, and they're going to be like, wait a minute, So I think in those discussions, the digital showroom can be an amazing tool to really bring that message together.
Yeah, I agree. And I have just one small anecdote. I saw a question coming in. So just one small anecdote I wanted to share in line of this train of thought is that I was in a meeting with an outerwear brand last week. And their vision was really to have to equip the sales team with a solution that will allow them to, first and foremost, tell and sell the brand story. That is what the emphasis of the sales appointment should be on. So really talking about what is the brand, the history, the future, the vision, and what is the story behind that. And then automatically after that, the sale of the products would then follow. But the first and foremost priority of this brand was the brand story. So in that sense, of course, the storytelling comes in exactly like you mentioned. Quickly going to the chat because I saw a question coming in.
I read it as well.
From Rinzi. How do you overcome the difficulty of dealing with traditional and conservative customers who are technologically challenged? Because of this reason, markets are reluctant of using new solutions.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, very, very many. First, I think we've dealt with our fair share of conservative customers already 10 years ago. Like I think every big brand that you can think of were like doubtful about this. I think the short answer is don't make it a technology change. I think the more you really bring digital and technology into all these changes, into this like new experience, the more you can really put people off. And you need to, I would say, when you think about this new experience, it needs to be an addition, it needs to be an enhancement of the actual selling engagement. In order to do that, there's two things that I think are super important. First, have a digital showroom solution that's easy to use and that is almost blends in as in like with what will happen traditionally. So you don't want to have somebody that has to go through three filters and two groupings to be able to find the right thing in the catalog. You need to make sure that you have something that have quick in and out access of those things. So as you're navigating the showroom, you are presenting a collection, you can leverage the tool in a way that it almost feels natural to what you're dealing with the customer. And the second thing is that these solutions, and we can talk about it later, they need to be seen in the context of the showroom experience. Like you need to be able to understand how you're presenting to your customers. Because I think the biggest shift before you need to look into something like this, understanding, are you having a selling session where like the first thing the customers do when they reach the showroom, they just sit down on a table and start looking at Excel sheets? Then maybe indeed is an interesting opportunity for you to understand, hey, how can you bring a bit of excitement on the new collection? And in that context, these solutions can really help you elevate that. But for me, the essence of the answer to this is like don't make it a matter of technology for the buyer. Make it a matter of experience. And in order to do that, you need to find the right solution that doesn't really feel like you're moving away from the selling into a digital solution, but rather enhances what you're doing. I think and this is something I'm not as in tune with the market as before, but when we were working with Stitch after the years at Tommy, one of our biggest selling points was that ease of use. Sellers and buyers, you don't need to teach them a new tool. First of all, because a buyer will have 20 more appointments with your competitor brands. So it needs to feel almost like natural, but it needs to be so natural that at the same time feels like the moment they go to a different brand, they're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have to wait 2 minutes or 3 minutes every time I'm asking for a new product. These are the kind of things that I think when you look into a solution and you look into an experience, you need to elevate before you go into like the nice and fancy and additional things that everybody wants to have. That way, I think you are in a better position to not talk about, oh, it's a technology tool, but more like I'm making the experience better.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are, of course, different ways of tackling this. From my experience, onboarding different types of brands as well, different type of user groups. Yeah, I think the key really is to see the implementation of a solution like this as a change management journey, right? So it sounds very daunting when you say it's a change management journey, but it is. And any change, positive or negative, but any change goes through these phases. And
Exactly.
I think it's very important that when you do find a solution that you want to work with, that you also ensure that they have a team in place with strong transformation managers that know how to deal with, of course, some objections and perhaps some people that are more reluctant to undergo a change, because this is very important. I think the end users are, in the end of the day, are going to become the promoters of the product. So if you as a business start to decide, I want to implement a digital pre-order tool like a digital showroom, then it's also your responsibility towards the end users to make that a success, because otherwise it's going to be another project on their plate, another thing they need to learn on their plate. And nobody is looking for that during a very busy sales season. So it's really, from management that decides on implementing a solution like this. There's a top-down push.
Yeah.
Also the responsibility of that management together with the vendor potentially who would supply the solution to make sure that the training is there, the hand-holding is there at the start, the Q&A is never too much to ask. That is also part of going through perhaps a little bit of a rough patch at the start. And that is not also, we need to understand it's normal. When you need to learn a new software, any type of software in your work environment, there's always a little bit of this hesitance and reluctance towards, oh, I need to do this again. It's normal. We're humans. You need to have a partner that also understands that that is part of the job and that is part of the journey.
Yeah. I think also one thing we forgot about mentioning here as well is like, ask your customers. I mean, they might be reluctant to digital solutions, but are they fully happy with how you're engaging in setting appointments? There's always feedback.
Yeah.
Tap onto that and build on top of that. I think that's a lot of the times the first step. But more often than not, sales teams know, but it's not always something that's readily available for the internal teams. So gather that feedback, build around that, and then solutions are aplenty. It's just a matter of making sure that you come from like making that experience better. Indeed.
Thanks for the question, Rinzi. On to the next topic, which is the topic that I think is very central to today's webinar, which is the build versus buy debate. So yeah, in your experience, because you really have a lot of experience building digital showrooms, what are the considerations to take into account for a brand when they make this decision, build versus buy?
I think the first most fundamental deal breaker that you can find in making this decision is understanding and be very honest with yourself as you reflect on these, understanding the cultural space that your brand operates in. And what I mean with cultural space is understanding what is the mindset they have towards technology, how is your company structure around technology. Because if you ask me, having built for a long time, I would say today, for 98% of the brands buy. I think even in full reflection mode here, even when you look at what happened at Tommy, we were at the right space at the right time when it came. We had the incredible opportunity to be able to actually build something because there was an almost like a great harmonic moment between leadership and end users that we were able to tap into to really grow it. But it was actually a temporal thing. It was not. It was something that we were able to then really navigate in a really effective way, and then it became a business as usual. But it's not always common that you have the investment, the alignment, and the wish at all these different layers to navigate something like this. And at the same time, 10 years ago, we were also triggered by the fact that there was absolutely, well, more than 10 years ago, nothing in the market. So that also really put us in the space where like we didn't really want to compromise with a solution that felt like a glorified Excel sheet for like improving our selling experience. And we realized that we had to build something from scratch. In today's world, if you are a company that fundamentally understands technology in a way that this can be served continuously, then yeah, it might be an opportunity worth exploring. But for most fashion companies and sports companies out there, that is not the case. And that is okay. That is okay. I think there is, going back to that efficiency first step that I mentioned, you're going to have to probably undergo a very intense data mapping, modeling, data agreements. You're going to have to understand the readiness of your collection digitally. Because when you put samples in the showroom, that's one thing. But when you have those samples ready in whatever catalog functionality or whatever catalog export you have, that's a different thing. And that thing actually needs to be ready earlier, so the sales teams can actually start working before even samples arrive, because we all know the constraint and the crunch time of getting ready for a season is. And that is, I think, in more of the companies that we've talked to, that we've worked with in the past, usually the first challenge, which is, like getting the basics right. And that and sometimes it's better to put focus on that and find the right partner outside and to really work alongside with them. Because you're going to have to look into budget, into technical engineering resources, and also like into looking into people that are able to build the experience. Like there is a lot of components that is very rare to find a fashion and sports company that has a digital acumen. And even then, many of them still choose not to,
Yeah.
because that's the other component. Unless you have a very, very unique approach to the market, so more often than not, the solutions out there will be able to help you. Plus, the content piece of it is really, really what dresses these digital showrooms. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you might be using the same as your competitor, but it's how you bring your collection to market that will ultimately make that digital showroom better or worse. And that I would say is the priority. And therefore, why I believe today, even though I've been building for a long time, that buy is a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it almost feels also that as a brand, if you decide to buy your own digital showroom, you would almost need to see your company as a technology company or an innovation company rather than a fashion company, a footwear company, or a sportswear company. So it's a very drastically different, I think, way of viewing what the priorities are of the business. Yeah, thanks for that insight. Interesting also, surprising maybe insight from someone who has been building showrooms for a decade.
Mm.
I think also from my perspective, when we look at collaborating with a company that offers out of the box solutions, so to say, it also comes with, instead of having to do your own research and development, if you buy, you have not only the software that is there, but it's also the many years of research and development that has already gone into that product, into that solution. So what that also means is that a lot of these early day teething problems, so to say,
Mm.
are already resolved, have already been thought through, have already been covered by user insights across the market. And also, speaking from my own experience, working now at Fashion Cloud, it's incredible with how much knowledge you also acquire by talking to so many different brands and retailers out there, from the smaller ones, the local ones, to the really big ones, the international ones, and everything in between. So that in wide plethora, let's say, of insights that you gain from both the brand side, but also from the retailer side, because let's not forget that retailers are also engaging with your digital showroom solution. So it's also important to understand how they view that solution. Understanding both of these aspects helps you to improve the product that you put on the market. And what I also feel is that having this wide array of insights also enables almost a flywheel of, you have a product, you get all these different user insights, you turn in these user insights into analyzing, okay, what are the market needs? That will then fuel further product development of the solution. This will, again, you have new product developments, you offer this to users, which creates, again, new user insights. And then so the flywheel starts flying. And this is very special in the case that I've seen so far, that it offers tremendous momentum in product development and staying on the top of your game as a product that you put out there on the market for brands to buy. So yeah, I would say also these are things to take into account when you think about the buy versus build discussion. On the flip side, I would be remiss if I wouldn't mention this. Some things to also take into account when you talk about build versus buy.
Yeah.
Is that when you buy, more often than not, you don't get a fully customized solution that seamlessly fits to your specific business needs. So that is something that you would need to take into account, that it does take some adjustments on both sides, on the vendor side, but also you as a customer.
I would say, if I can add to that, I think indeed customers say, like, you need to find a partner. Like if you're choosing to buy, I think it goes both ways. I think you need to find that, but you need to strike that balance between standardization and customization. And I think in the industry, we tend to see brands that over customize their processes. And like, I mean, I've talked to many peers talking about how they have their own thing. When you look into it, it's just basically like a different coat of paint. But then that over customization sometimes becomes a blocker. And I think engaging in that understanding of what are really our secret sauce and what are things that we can actually arguably work better. I think that is also a space where when buying, it's good to find a good level of customization, but also don't be shy of thinking, actually, these people know what they're doing. Maybe it's a good opportunity. Because at the end of the day, I haven't found anyone that says we have our own thing, but that also says our own thing works very well. So in that regard, I think you need to, yeah, it's again a mindset thing. You need to really understand that maybe this is the chance. This is the chance to clean some of the things that haven't been cleaned for multiple springs,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Just looking at the time, I wanted to ask you, I think, one last question, which is, yeah, is there any hands-on experiences that you can share with the audience here, from building digital showrooms across the different brands that you've worked at?
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first one, actually based on the question we got, I'll enhance it. I had it written down as like, do it with your sales team, not for your sales team. I think there is I tend to see how wholesale remains a big unknown, one of the biggest drivers in revenue for many brands, and still the biggest unknown for so many people outside their wholesale organization. And that happens the same for the technology or people that might be implementing or buying or building something, that they do it for them with very little interactions. I haven't found any successful story of actual adoption of these tools out there that does not have that relationship enforced and enhanced. So work alongside with them. Don't be shy of them being critical about it, because I would say the biggest signal you get of something working is when it doesn't work and you get all the heat via emails or escalations. That is the best sign your tool has become critical. And for that, you need to embrace that sort of like engagement. I think that's one thing that you need to be hyper close with your sales team. And I think actually a lot of those relationships we have in the past are a good testament. The fact that like most of my creator colleagues are back in these companies were basically from the sales team, like people that were using it. So build that relationship, because it's going to be the big success, whether you build or buy. The second thing is, and this is also coming from very specific experience and my background, involve marketing early. There is also a tendency where the marketing teams, I see a trend where marketing teams are often seeing trade marketing or B2B as almost like the minimum viable effort to get it by. But the more you're doing this, the more you need content, the more you need brand, the more you need to tell the story, to engage people in the same way you would expect your company to be present in front of your end consumer. Involve them, push them, challenge them. They need to, like, you can make this happen, at least to the extent that you can make it happen, which is without bringing them to do more than just a key look book PDF. They need to engage in understanding what are the key stories of the season, how are you going to sell them, because not only Fashion Cloud solution provide, I think you guys still provide this ability, but I think being able to embed this sort of marketing stories as you're selling the product, rather than here's the collection and now I'm going to show you the lookbook. I think that connectivity is what actually makes this content useful, content that you can actually KPI out of and you get performance out of. And that is something that, for that, you need to have them on board, because they need to shoot things, they need to prepare things. That it becomes for us became the biggest unlock. Having marketing, I mean, we started as a marketing team developing this, so we had a little bit of a chance, but we managed to then, when we move away from that, to actually keep the marketing team engaged. And last but not least, and this goes a bit more into the space of the actual space. So the software and the space, is that for any of these to ultimately work in the long term, you need to stop thinking of showrooms as back offices. You need to stop thinking about showrooms as sales offices. You need to start thinking about showrooms as actual retail flagship stores. They are your first touch point with the world. You need to listen to it, you need to engage with it, and you need to come to it with meaning, with purpose. I think trying to put like a fancy, amazing looking solution with like a setup in a showroom that still doesn't play the part feels like an afterthought or a patch. But you need to actually move through that transition of like, hey, wholesale is important, and it's actually a lot more important, can be a lot more sexy and engaging than we make it happen. And that starts by making sure the showrooms do feel like a space when the buyer walks in, kind of like just has this like moment of like, there's a need, like you need to build the experience where the digital showroom is key, but you need to build the entire space to think about how do you engage that buyer. Going back to that digital solution, digital solution should be the one part of that big experience. The question is your experience there? More often than not, these can act as a patch, but it won't be lasting long term. You need to think about it together as a wholesale experience revamp.
Yeah. Thanks for that insight. I think it's also refreshing to hear that, yeah, businesses tend to see fashion showrooms as a back office or a sales office, but they're definitely more than that, and they can be more than that. Also, just to tag on to that, I think not for all brands, I think marketing, of course, is as central to the digital showroom as perhaps in your experience. So I just also wanted to share that, yes, it is definitely something that you can use for that sort of storytelling element, that third layer that we started off with at the start of the webinar. But I think as well, yeah, the data is really king for any type of digital solution that you want to start using efficiently. So in my experience, data is really the driving force first and foremost. Yeah, so just to tie off, I also wanted to share one more thing while I sort of wrap up, and let's see if I can still share it. Oh, here it is. I wanted to ask you, are you seeing, wait, resume. Oh, maybe not. Oh, no, I don't think it's working. Anyways, I wanted to wrap up the webinar to give you some of the practical takeaways. So yeah, I think I have a list of about 6 elements here to really take into account when you do look for a vendor that offers digital showroom solutions. And this is really from experiences that we've gathered so far. So first and foremost, and we've already touched upon this a little bit, is that it's, I think, very important to find a solution that has fashion industry knowledge and that is actually very ingrained in the core of their business, because fashion is a very big industry, but it has its unique telltales, details that, it's very important for everybody to keep it to account. So when you do implement a digital solution, you want to do that with a partner that truly knows and understands your processes and all the finesse that comes with it. Then Alvi mentioned it, it's very important to find a digital solution that has a high usability. So not something super technical, super complicated to navigate, but something that does the job and is easy to navigate, also for the users that are more prone to be hesitant when it comes to change or digitization. So ease of use, super important. Then the customer experience, what Alvi mentioned, how the retailers view it, how do they experience it? This is very important. Price versus value, because of course also price versus value is an important element to take into account. Price is obviously very important because we all have budgets and we all need to work with them. But it's also very important to understand what is the value that we get out of implementing a solution like this, and what is the long-term value, right? So often when you implement it at the start, it's a lot of implementation costs or switching costs if you need it. But it's really about what is the long-term vision and how does this tool give us the value in the long term, which then results obviously in ROI as well. So that is an equation that you need to also discuss and think about it more towards the future, rather than what's it going to cost me in the next 2 years versus the next 5 to 10 years, perhaps potentially. Then innovation, of course, the world is changing ever so fast. I don't think it's ever innovated and changed so fast as now. So you need to have a vendor that also, keeps up with the pace. And then there's also the credibility of the technology that they provide. So yeah, you want to have a company that takes the technology very seriously, focuses on value creation for you and for the brand. And we have some questions that you can ask yourself with all of these topics that we will send with the recording of the webinar. I wanted to share a rating to ask everybody what they thought of today's webinar. We're out of time, so I also wanted to ask if there's more questions. But again, feel free to post any questions over email or send us a message on LinkedIn or whatever. Thank you for joining us today, Alvi, for giving all your valuable insights.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you all for joining live for our second webinar here at Fashion Cloud. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you again, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.